Hey James, what's up, man? I figured I would go ahead and compile all my comments into a video response to your take on the teleological argument. And I've been kind of beating myself up over this because I don't want to have to be an a-hole and make a response to everything you post. So I'm trying not to come at it like that, just being a overtly critical nitpick. So I'm gonna try to be fair to your points as much as possible without having. I don't want to comb through all your arguments and look for things that are wrong. I really want my responses to be legit. So in saying that, let me get into this. I wrote some notes here so I don't forget. I do want to say that I know that your video wasn't an exhaustive attempt to explain the teleological argument and why you disagree with it as an argument. So I am going to address some things that your video didn't address, but I'm going to keep it to a minimum. I'm not, I realize it wasn't a video series on the topic. So, anyways, first thing I want to say is you weren't per se addressing the teleological arguments as a whole. You were more or less addressing the fine-tuning argument, which makes up part of the teleological argument. I do want to address that. What you were addressing wasn't the teleological argument as a whole. It's just part of it. It's actually a cumulative argument based on many different aspects. So, the first thing, I think you made two main assertions, and those are the two main things I want to address. The first thing you said, it's a presuppositional argument, meaning you get to the conclusion by presupposing it. And this is in regards to the fine-tuning aspect of the teleological argument. So only in regards to the structure of the argument, I'll give you that. I'll concede that point. I think you're right in regards to the structure of the argument, not the conclusion. It's not just because an argument is badly structured doesn't mean the conclusion is wrong. I know that's a cop-out, so that's not my main argument, but I did want to throw that out there. But when you say that the teleological argument is presuppositional, you're completely ignoring the fact that people come to the same conclusion by looking at the evidence or after looking at the evidence, and that is not presupposing anything. That's letting the evidence speak for itself. So when you're saying the only way to get to the conclusion is by presupposing it, that's not true. It may be true in some regards, but not true as a whole. There are plenty of cases where people have arrived at this same conclusion by the evidence after the fact. So that's not true. And what else? I want to get into what the teleological argument actually is too, but let me address this other point, this other thing you were saying. You were saying that the teleological argument must be able to demonstrate that the constants could be different to be able to hold its weight as an argument. Again, that you're talking about the fine-tuning argument, which is under the umbrella of the teleological argument. I don't agree with that because we're invoking telos, and you can show that by showing things as they are. You don't have to show what things are not. That's not the main assertion of the argument. You can still, by looking at the what's going on in the universe as it is right now, you can still invoke telos. You don't have to say, well, if it was a little different, or if this wasn't this way or that's not the main point of that doesn't invoke telos. That's a secondary argument, I would say, and it does. I think it's a legitimate consideration. And I gave you an example of this, and I think you got the wrong idea of what I meant. I'll give you the example again. Imagine if the mob beat me up, tied bricks to my feet, and threw me into the Hudson River. As I hit the bottom of the river, I happened to find an oxygen tank with a mouthpiece, thus saving my life. I could establish a high level of improbability and wonder and amazement on this fact alone, without having to reflect on if the tank might or might not have contained CO2, butane, propane, or fish poop, anything else. So this analogy is not to show that I'm taking a living thing and putting it into a situation to see if it lives. That's not the point of that. You can substitute the mafia scenario with any scenario you want. The main point of my analogy is showing that the improbability of finding the tank itself is a warrant for its own consideration. That's what I was getting at. So I don't have to say, man, if that tank didn't have, or man, if that tank had butane in it, I wouldn't be here. Or crap, if that tank had CO2 in it, I wouldn't be here. Of course I wouldn't be here. And reflecting on these things does stimulate the awe of my situation, but the tank alone, just finding it, warrants enough consideration for itself without having to reflect on what's not true or true about the tank. So that's what I mean.